Rosewood Manor was really something. It stood there against the twilight like a church made out of old stone, and it was covered in climbing roses that only bloomed when the moon was out. The place was huge with lots of gardens that people took care of. It had those pointy things on top like you see in old churches reaching up towards the stars. Vampires had been looking at those stars for a long time. Inside the rooms there were fancy lights made of crystal that gave off a warm glow, and they shone on old pictures of important people. It felt like those people in the pictures were watching you, judging you all the time. Tonight Rosewood Manor was getting ready for another year of parties, another year of pretending everything was okay when really there were lots of secrets hiding in the dark corners of the manor. Rosewood Manor was going to have a lot of people coming and going. It would have to keep up appearances just like it always did. Juliana Winters put on her leather gloves and looked around the rose garden that she was supposed to take care of. She was 26 years old and had worked in big houses before, so she knew what it felt like when something was wrong. This place felt sad, like a graveyard on a day. The man in charge of the gardens told her what to do on her day. She had to make sure the gardens that people could see were perfect. She had to stay from the east wing where the princess lived. The royal family was off limits unless they asked her to come to them. Juliana Winters remembered the rules. Thought about the rose garden and how she would make it look nice. The rose garden was her job, and she would make sure it was beautiful just like the head groundskeeper told her to do. The rules were really clear. The boundaries were very firm. Juliana said she understood the rules, and she nodded to show that she got it. Inside, Juliana was thinking about which rules she might be able to bend a little bit. She was thinking about the rules. How she could work with them. The rules and the boundaries were important to Juliana. She came from a family, the daughter of farmers who worked on the land until a late frost took everything away. The only thing she really knew was working in the garden. She did it in her own way. She had an eye for making things look nice and a gentle way of helping plants grow. Plants did well when she took care of them. They bloomed more and got stronger. Some people thought Juliana had a gift, but she just said she paid attention to the plants. Every leaf on a plant had its story, every flower had its own needs, and you had to be patient to understand them, which is something that a lot of people do not have. Juliana loved garden work and she was good at it. She knew that every plant was different and needed to be taken care of in its way. The people in charge at Rosewood Manor, the nobility who gave her a job, did not really care about where she came from. They wanted things to be nice and easy. They wanted everything to be perfect without having to lift a finger. Juliana did a job of giving them what they wanted. She did her work quietly. Got everything done. On her night at Rosewood Manor, Juliana was cutting back the night-blooming jasmine that was growing near the wall in the east garden. Then she heard something that made her stop what she was doing. It sounded like someone was humming a nice tune, and it was coming from the other side of the bushes that separated the part of the garden that people could visit from the private royal gardens. Juliana put down her shears. Walked closer to the wall of green plants. She saw a person sitting on the ground through a hole in the leaves. The person was a woman, maybe 19 or 20 years old. This young woman had hair that was really light like the stars in the sky, and her skin was very pale. It looked like it was shining in the dark. She had on a white dress that was all around her on the ground like milk that had spilled. Her fingers were moving carefully as she put the flower petals in special patterns on the grass like circles and shapes. The designs were really beautiful. They had a look and a natural look at the same time. Each petal was put in a place, on purpose. Juliana knew this without thinking about it. This was not something that happened by chance. This was a way of communicating with her. The designs were a form of communication. Juliana felt like she understood what they were trying to say. The petal designs were special. Juliana knew that they were meant to tell her something. The young woman did not look up. She did not notice the world around her because she was so focused on what she was doing. She just hummed a tune and made her flower patterns with all her attention. Juliana knew who she was from the picture in the hall. It was Princess Celeste, the daughter of King Theodore Ashford, but she would not inherit the throne because the rules of the vampires say you have to be strong, and they thought Princess Celeste was not strong enough. The people who worked in the house talked about how strange she was, how quiet she was, and how her father felt ashamed of her. They talked about Princess Celeste like she was something and broken that you put away in a room you do not use. Princess Celeste and her flower mandalas were all that mattered to her. She worked on them every day. Juliana stood there for 10 minutes really interested in what the princess was doing. The princess made these patterns and they seemed to have their own beat, like they were saying something in a language that Juliana felt like she almost understood. The princess was making all these patterns with flowers. When the wind came and messed some of them up, the princess just stopped what she was doing. She was humming to herself before that. Then she stopped humming too. For a moment she just sat there not moving. Juliana saw the prince's shoulders start to shake. The princess, Celeste, was clearly very upset about her design being ruined. Juliana watched the princess, Celeste. Felt bad for her. Juliana just walked through the hedge without thinking about it. She was basically trespassing on someone's property. This could get her into trouble. She might even lose her job. But standing by and doing nothing while someone's beautiful garden was ruined by luck felt even worse than breaking the rules. Juliana got down on her knees at the edge of the flowers that were over the place and started picking them up. She sorted the petals by color and size just like Celeste did. Juliana was really careful. With the flowers she wanted to respect the way they were supposed to look. The princess' head lifted up slowly. Her eyes were really something. They were a violet color, like the stone amethyst when you hold it up to the light from a candle. The princess' eyes were fixed on Juliana with a lot of intensity. It was pretty surprising. Most people would think the princess' eyes looked empty. Juliana saw that they were actually really deep, like the ocean, with a lot of thoughts going on underneath the surface. The princess' eyes did not look still to Juliana. Juliana smiled in a way and kept picking up petals. She put them in small piles that were easy for Celeste to reach. The princess' hand moved after a long time. She picked a pink petal from the ones Juliana was offering and put it back where it was supposed to be. The wind had blown the one away. Then she did the thing with another petal. Another one. The princess and Juliana worked together without saying a word, putting the pieces together until the mandala was complete again. When they were done, Celeste started humming, but this time it was really soft and it sounded like she was not really sure about something. Juliana sat back on her heels. She said hello softly. "I am Juliana," she told them. Juliana takes care of the gardens. The patterns they had were really beautiful. Juliana thought they must mean something to the people who made them. "Do the patterns mean something?" Juliana asked. Celeste did not say anything. She just picked up a bunch of petals and started making a new picture next to the first one. This new picture was really different. It looked like it was moving, like water or air. Celeste's fingers were moving fast. In just a few minutes she made something that made Juliana stop breathing for a second. It was a garden, the garden that Celeste made. Not the garden they were in. Some other garden that Celeste remembered or imagined. The garden that Celeste created with the petals was beautiful. The paths went around the flower beds and a little person was standing in the middle. This little person had their hands out to the sides. They were looking up at the sky. The flower beds were really pretty. The paths were winding around them. The little person was standing in the center of all these beautiful flowers with their hands still stretched out toward the sky. "That is really lovely," Juliana whispered. Is Juliana in a place that Juliana remembers? Celeste's fingers touched the figure she had made, then she touched her own chest. Her eyes looked at Juliana's eyes again. This time Celeste's eyes were really talking to Juliana's eyes. The eyes of Celeste were saying that the small figure was Celeste. The small figure was where Celeste felt safe. It was where Celeste felt like she was at home. Juliana nodded slowly. She was starting to understand. It was like one of her roses that she took care of every day. You know, the ones she planted and watered and watched grow. You talk to people through the things that happen in life. Through the way things are in nature. The world is easier to figure out when you look at it this way. The world makes sense when you think about it like that, does it not? Juliana thought about this. She realized that the world and nature and the things that happen in life are all connected to the patterns that you speak through. Princess Celeste smiled for the time. It was a smile, but it was really happening. She put her hand into her dress. Pulled out a little book made of leather. The book had flowers that had been pressed between its pages and some drawings. Princess Celeste opened the book to a page that showed what a garden could look like. Each plant in the garden had a picture next to it instead of a name. Princess Celeste touched the paths in the garden with her finger, showing Juliana the way to walk. The path went around in a circle. Got smaller until it reached the middle, where a star was drawn. Princess Celeste was showing Juliana the garden layout, in her leather journal. "This is really beautiful," Juliana said. "You made this all by yourself?" Celeste nodded. She thought about it for a moment. Then she ripped a page out of her journal and handed it to Juliana. She also gave her a piece of charcoal. It was like she was saying, "Show me what you have got." Celeste wanted to see Juliana's stuff. She wanted Juliana to draw something on the paper. Juliana was really moved by the fact that someone was willing to share their tools with her. She felt very touched by this gesture. The garden she had taken care of when she was a kid on her family's farm was what she decided to draw. Juliana's garden had vegetables growing in rows. There were also sunflowers along the fence. A small girl was standing in the corner of the garden. This little girl had dirt over her knees and a big smile on her face. The garden that Juliana drew was not as complicated as the things that Celeste made. It was still very nice. Juliana's drawing of the garden showed how happy she was when she was a kid. When she was done, she turned the paper around so Celeste could take a look. "This was my first garden. I was 7 years old at the time. The tomatoes got so big that summer that the plants needed some help to stay up, and the sunflowers were actually taller than my father, which was really something to see." Celeste looked at the drawing closely. She used her finger to follow the lines of the sunflowers. Then she touched Juliana's hand softly for a second. When she took her finger away, she was smiling. This time her smile was even bigger. Celeste picked up some petals and started making something new. Juliana saw that Celeste was making a sunflower with gold petals. Each petal was put in a place to look like the seeds, in the middle of the sunflower. The petals were going out from the center like they were growing. From the manor a bell chimed. This sound made Celeste's face change away. Her open face closed up like a flower that shuts at night. Celeste started to pick up her journal and the piles of petals fast. She was moving quickly because she was worried. Juliana knew what was going on. The princess was not allowed to have visitors. Now someone was coming to the manor. Celeste was gathering her things because the princess had to hide the fact that she had a visitor. Juliana said softly that she will go. She wants to know if she can come back the next evening. Juliana would like to see more of your designs because she thinks they are really interesting. She is looking forward to seeing what other things you have made. Celeste looked at Juliana. Her eyes, which were a violet color, searched Juliana's face. She seemed to find what she was looking for because she nodded her head. It was in clear movement. Then Celeste did something that surprised Juliana. She picked a white rose from a bush that was close by. She handed the rose to Juliana, giving her the stem end of it. The white rose was a thing for Celeste to give to Juliana. Juliana took the flower. She bowed her head a little to say thank you. "Thank you, Princess Celeste." She will see Princess Celeste again until tomorrow. She slipped back through the hedge just as the light from a torch appeared on the path that led to the royal gardens. Juliana was hiding in the shadows of the grounds. She watched as King Theodore Ashford came out of the darkness. The king was a man even from far away. He was tall. Had wide shoulders. His dark hair had streaks of silver in it. He looked like someone who was used to being in charge all the time. When he looked at his daughter, Juliana saw something different. The way King Theodore Ashford looked at his daughter was not like the way he looked at people. Juliana saw this. It made her think about the royal family in a new way. King Theodore Ashford and his daughter were standing there. Juliana was watching them from the shadows. The pain felt really bad. It still had not healed. It was like seeing Celeste again made old hurts come back. They would not go away. The pain of these wounds was still very strong, like they had never started to heal at all. Seeing Celeste was like opening them up, and they still did not want to close. The king. His voice was really quiet, so Juliana could not hear what he was saying. The way he sounded was nice even if he seemed a little upset. Celeste picked up her stuff. Did not look at him. She was moving around like a robot now. A little while ago she was full of life, but it was all gone. The king and Celeste walked to the manor together. They made sure to stay away from each other. The king and his daughter Celeste are related by blood. There is a big gap between them that neither the king nor Celeste seemed to be able to fix. Juliana stood in the darkness for a time after they were gone. The white rose was still in her hand. She thought about the flowers that were arranged in a pattern, about the book she wrote in that was full of ideas for her garden, about the violet eyes that seemed to know everything. The princess was okay. She was not missing anything. She just existed in her way, and her father had forgotten how to understand her. It was not the princess who was the problem, it was the people around her who did not know how to hear what the princess was saying. The princess was isolated because of this, not because of who she was. Tomorrow Juliana decided that she would go back. She would keep going until Princess Celeste knew that someone really saw her, really understood her, and really liked the way Princess Celeste saw the world. Some friendships take a time to grow, like really old trees that grow deep roots. When they are strong, they can get through anything. Juliana had spent her life taking care of things that were not strong until they became strong. She did this with Princess Celeste in mind because Juliana wanted Princess Celeste to know that someone valued the way Princess Celeste experienced the world. She would do the same for the lonely princess in the rose garden, no matter what rules she had to bend or what consequences might follow. The next evening. It was really foggy. The fog stuck to the towers of Rosewood Manor like cloths. Juliana did her work quickly. She cut the bushes. Picked up the leaves that had fallen on the main paths. The other people who took care of the garden did not pay attention to Juliana. They were all busy with their work and things they did every evening. When it started to get really dark, Juliana went to the wall on the side of the garden. Her heart was beating fast because she was excited and nervous at the same time. Celeste was already there, sitting in the spot as before. Tonight she had on a lavender dress. There were dozens of clay pots in front of her, and these pots were filled with soil. Celeste was putting seeds in the soil. She was doing it very carefully. She was pressing each seed into the earth, making sure it was at the right depth. Her fingers were moving in a rhythm, like music. When Juliana walked through the hedge, Celeste looked up away. Her face lit up with a smile, and it was clear she was happy to see Juliana. Juliana got down on her knees beside her. Took a closer look at the pots that were all lined up. What kind of things are you going to plant in these pots? She was really curious about the plants. Celeste got her journal. Opened it to a page with lots of drawings of flowers. Each flower had symbols next to it instead of names. Her finger touched the pictures of the moonflower, the night-blooming jasmine, and the evening primrose. These are all flowers that open up at night. They do well in the dark. Not so well in the sun. She pointed to the pots of flowers, then she pointed to herself, then she pointed to the moon up in the sky. You really connect with gardens, Juliana said softly. This is when nighttime gardens make you feel most alive. The world is a lot quieter at night. The rhythms of nighttime gardens are clearer. Nighttime gardens have a way of making things feel more peaceful. Celeste nodded fast. She got a watering can and started watering each pot very carefully, making sure every seed got the same amount of water. Doing the thing over and over seemed to calm Celeste down. As she watered the seeds, she started humming that tune that Juliana had heard the night before. Celeste was humming that tune again, the one that had no words. Over the hour, Juliana learned how to talk to Celeste in Celeste's language. The princess showed Juliana some pages from her journal. These pages had lots of notes about how plants grow. The princess had noticed that some flowers open up in a shape while others open up one layer at a time. The princess had even written down when each flower would bloom. She saw that the moon had something to do with how bright the flowers were when they bloomed. The work that the princess did was really good. It showed that the princess knew a lot about plants and science. This would have impressed any expert. The people at the court did not think the princess was smart enough to learn things like this. Juliana shared her knowledge with Celeste, telling her how to get seeds to grow that do not want to. She explained how to keep the plants from getting hurt by the frost. Juliana also showed her how to tell if a plant needs water or if it is getting too much sun. Celeste listened carefully to everything Juliana said. She sometimes drew pictures in her notebook to help her remember what Juliana was saying. Celeste was taking Juliana's words, making her own pictures to understand them better. The moon was really high now. Juliana felt brave enough to ask the question that had been on her mind since she met him. May I ask about your mother? The people who work here talked about how she died when you were a little kid. Celeste's hands stopped moving over the soil. She just stood there for a long time, not doing anything. Then she slowly turned to the beginning of her journal. The pages at the start were different from the rest, they were older. The paper had turned yellow because they were so old. These pages had flowers in them that she had pressed and taken care of. She had written notes about them using special symbols that meant something to her. There were some other things in these pages too. A strand of hair that she had made into a pretty bracelet. A piece of ribbon made of silk. A rose that had dried up and was the color of blood when it is fresh. Celeste's finger touched the rose softly. She started putting flower petals on the ground to her. She made a picture with the petals. The picture was a woman's face. It was made from white petals. The woman was very pretty and calm. She had hair on her head like a crown. Celeste made another picture next to the woman. This picture was a baby being held in someone's arms. The baby was being held gently. The love in these flower pictures was really strong. Celeste made the rose and the pictures of the woman and the baby with the flower petals. The love in the pictures of the woman and the baby was very clear. Juliana whispered that she was really beautiful. She also said that this beautiful woman loved the person she was talking to much. The woman was beautiful. Juliana knew that this beautiful woman had strong feelings for this person. Celeste. Tears started to gather in her violet eyes. She made another picture. This time the woman was dancing, her dress was moving around her and her arms were out in the air. Then Celeste made another picture. The woman was lying very still, she was not dancing anymore, and the petals were all over the place like the wind had blown them away really hard. The prince's hands were shaking as she finished making this picture of the woman. Juliana understood what was going on. Queen Anastasia had passed away when Celeste was born, and now Celeste had to live with that. It was like Celeste had something heavy hanging around her neck all the time. Juliana slowly reached out to Celeste, making it clear what she was going to do. Since Celeste did not pull her hand back, Juliana gently took Celeste's hand in her hand. Juliana said to me, it was not your fault. Having a baby can be dangerous and sometimes bad things happen even when people do everything they can to prevent them. Your mother decided to have you because she really wanted a baby, and that is what love is, not something to feel bad about. Birth is a risk and sometimes tragedy strikes, but your mother chose to bring you into this world because she wanted you, and that is love, not blame. Celeste's tears fell down, going down her face like water. She held Juliana's hand tightly, holding on like she was scared to let go. They sat together in the garden with the moon shining down on them. The princess, Celeste, cried without making a sound, letting out all the feelings that she had kept inside her for a very long time. When the tears finally stopped, Celeste showed Juliana another page from her journal. This page had a room with a really high ceiling and fancy lights. There were people dancing in pairs on the floor, and the way they were drawn made it look like they were moving to music. The lines that drew the people looked like they were flowing. Over in the corner of the picture, away from all the people dancing, was a little person standing by themselves. This little person was watching the others with their hands out. The journal page showed the room with the people dancing and the little person watching, and it was a really pretty picture. Celeste's journal had a lot of pictures, and this one, with the big room and the little person, was one of them. "That is you," Juliana said gently. "You want to dance like your mother used to dance?" Celeste nodded. Then she did something that really surprised Juliana. She got up, held out her hand with her palm facing up, waiting for Juliana to take it. When Juliana stood up and took Celeste's hand, the princess started to dance. There was no music, just Celeste humming a tune. She carefully showed Juliana some basic dance steps. Celeste went 1 2 3, then she turned. She did it again, 1 2 3. Turned. The dance rhythm was easy to follow and very steady, something Celeste had learned by watching and remembering. Your mother taught you this, Juliana realized. She learned it by watching her mother and feeling the patterns that her mother used. Your mother was very good at teaching you things like this through watching and feeling the patterns. The people moved together in the garden. Their dance was simple. It was sincere. Celeste's face showed she was concentrating and happy at the time. Her body remembered the moves even if she could not say the words. When they finally stopped dancing, they were a little out of breath. The princess was smiling all the way for the time. Celeste and the princess had a time dancing together in the garden. The secret meetings of Juliana and Celeste continued every evening for the 2 weeks. Juliana brought seeds and cuttings from the gardens to add to Celeste's night-blooming plants. Juliana and Celeste worked together to create a hidden place in the garden. This place was special to Celeste because it was made the way she liked it. There were spirals of stones on the ground that showed the way to walk between the plants. Celeste hung wind chimes made from dried seed pods on the branches of the plants. When the wind blew, these wind chimes made music. Juliana and Celeste thought about everything they did in the garden. They did not put anything in the garden by accident. Everything in the garden had a meaning to Juliana and Celeste. Secrets in courts do not stay secret for long. The person who takes care of the grounds saw that Juliana was not around in the evenings. The people who work in the house said they saw lights on in the garden when Juliana should have been in her room. People started talking about it all over the house. It was like a feeling that spreads quickly. The vampire courts are always full of secrets, but this one was not going to stay hidden. The news of Juliana's nighttime walks in the garden was spreading fast. Lord Reginald Blackwood was the one who made everyone aware of the situation. He is a member of King Theodore's council. Lord Reginald Blackwood is an old vampire. He has features and he really wants to get what he wants. Lord Reginald Blackwood is one of the people who thought the princess should be sent to an away estate. This is because the princess is a little strange and Lord Reginald Blackwood did not want her to embarrass the family. Lord Reginald Blackwood has thought this for a time. On the night of the council meeting, he stood before the nobles in the hall of the manor and told them what he had to say in a very dramatic way. Your Majesty, I have some news about Princess Celeste. There is a gardener who is not supposed to be in the royal gardens. He has been going there and spending a lot of time with Princess Celeste all by themselves without anyone watching or saying it is okay. This is not right. We cannot let it happen. The royal gardens are for Princess Celeste and this gardener should not be there, with Princess Celeste. King Theodore was sitting still on his throne. He looked really serious. His face was, like a rock. What was the name of the gardener? Juliana Winters, my lord. She is a woman and Lord Blackwood hired her just 3 weeks ago. Lord Blackwood's voice was full of dislike when he said this. I have people who can confirm that Juliana Winters has been seeing the princess every evening. They do not know what Juliana Winters and the princess do together. Lord Blackwood thinks it is not right. The king's jaw got really tight. He said to go get her away. The king wanted to see her. The guards walked Juliana into the hall really fast. She was working when they came to get her and her hands and knees were still dirty. Juliana held her head up high when she got to the throne. She did not want to show the nobles that she was scared. The vampire nobles were watching Juliana with a lot of interest like they wanted to hurt her. Juliana was not going to let them see that she was afraid of the nobles. Theodore Ashford looked at her with these intense red eyes that seemed like they could burn right through something. You have been seeing my daughter without asking me. Yes, your majesty, Juliana said. I have done that, Juliana answered honestly. Tell me what is going on. The command was given fast. It was, like a loud crack that gets your attention right away. The person who gave the command wanted something done immediately. The command cracked like a whip, which means it was sudden and strong like when you crack a whip to make a noise. Juliana took a breath and thought about what she wanted to say. Princess Celeste is really something. The way she sees the world is different, from everyone. She notices patterns and rhythms that other people do not see. I have learned a lot from her about plants and how things grow in nature. In 2 weeks Princess Celeste taught me more than I learned in school for years. I did not ask for permission to spend time with Princess Celeste because I thought I would be told no. I believed Princess Celeste needed someone to talk to and keep her company more than I needed to do what I was supposed to do. Gasps echoed through the hall. Some of the nobles were really upset. They called for the person to be punished right away. Lord Blackwood had a smile on his face like a cat that has caught a mouse and is waiting to pounce on it. The nobles were angry. Lord Blackwood just smiled, like he was happy about what was happening to the person who was in big trouble, and Lord Blackwood was the one who was very pleased. King Theodore raised his hand because he wanted everyone to be quiet. Do you really think you know what is best for my daughter more than I do? King Theodore asked his question to the person who was speaking. King Theodore was very upset. Wanted to know why this person thought they knew what his daughter needed. I do not assume anything, Your Majesty. Juliana looked at him. I see Juliana clearly, which is more than most people in this manner can say they do about Juliana. The king got up from his throne. It was like the whole room was filled with the king's power. The king said, you do not know anything about the king's daughter. The king's daughter has a lot of problems and the king's daughter hurts people by being alive. The king's voice started to shake a bit. The king's daughter looks like the king's wife, and that reminds the king of everything the king lost. The king's daughter does not even get why that is such a deal to the king. Juliana said this quietly. The little girl understands a lot more than people think. She knows that her mother passed away when she was born. The girl feels guilty about this every day. Juliana explained that the girl sees her father avoiding her and she notices the sadness in his eyes when he looks at the girl. The girl thinks that she is the reason why her father's so unhappy. Theodore's face went completely white. How did you figure this out about Theodore? The queen showed me this. She has a journal. It is full of flowers from her mother's garden. There are also drawings of Queen Anastasia dancing in the journal. The queen also drew pictures of herself standing in the shadows and watching. The queen made up her way of talking because she wanted to say things that normal words cannot say. If people took the time to learn the queen's language, they would see that she is very special and that she has a lot of love in her heart. The Queen's journal is really something because it is full of the things that re important to her, like the flowers, from her mother's garden, and the drawings of Queen Anastasia dancing. The hall was totally quiet. Every single person looked back and forth between the king and the gardener, who had dirt over his clothes and was brave enough to tell the king what he really thought. The king and the gardener were the center of attention, with the king and the gardener being the two people who seemed to matter at that moment. Theodore got down from his throne slowly and stopped right in front of Juliana, just a few inches away. When Theodore spoke, his voice was so quiet you could hardly hear it. Theodore said, "Show me." Juliana walked with King Theodore through the hallways to the garden wall on the east side. The important people came behind them. They did not come too close. These people were very curious. A little upset at the same time. There were guards on each side of King Theodore and Juliana. They had their hands on the handles of their swords. It was not clear what they were afraid of. The air was full of excitement. People were waiting to see what would happen. They were getting close to the place, in the hedge where Juliana had seen the princess a weeks before. Celeste made something beyond the trees and plants. She had a garden that was really pretty. There were lights hanging from the branches. The flowers that bloomed at night smelled good. It was like they were hurting your heart because they smelled so sweet. The paths made of stone looked like they were shining like the moon. In the middle of all this was the princess. She was sitting with her journal. The flower patterns she made and all the things she wrote down about the things that she saw that other people could not see. The princess was surrounded by her journal pages and her petal mandalas and all her writing about the world that Celeste had created. She looked up as they came near, and when she saw her father walking in front of the group, she turned pale. Her hands quickly went to her journal. She held it tight against her chest. The fear in her eyes was really scary. She was totally terrified. You could see it in her eyes when she looked at her father. Theodore stopped all of a sudden. He had not been this close to his daughter in a time, and he had not really looked at her in even longer. Now Theodore saw everything that Juliana had told him about. He saw the intelligence in Juliana's violet eyes. He saw the artistry in everything she had arranged so carefully. Theodore saw the love that Juliana had for her mother in each and every pressed flower that she had kept to remember her mother by. "Celeste," he said quietly. When he said the name Celeste, his voice started to crack. The princess took a step back. Her breathing was really fast and not very deep. She started swaying a little. It was something she did to calm herself down. The king noticed this. It reminded him of Anastasia. Anastasia used to do the thing when she was feeling overwhelmed. She would find comfort in the rhythm of her movements when she could not find the words to say. The princess was doing the thing just like Anastasia, and it was very familiar to the king. Juliana went over to Celeste's side. Got down on her knees in the dirt. She did not care that the nobles were watching her. She took Celeste's hand gently. "Your father wants to see your garden. Will you take him to see the garden of yours, Celeste?" Celeste shook her head fast. She started humming that tune of hers, the one that did not have any words. This tune was like a shield that protected her from the world that was too noisy and too mean. The humming was something Celeste did when she felt scared or upset. It was like her secret song that made her feel a little safer. Celeste kept humming, letting the sound of her voice calm her down. It was her way of dealing with the world, her own special way of saying that the humming, the wordless melody, was what she needed to feel okay. "He wants to know what is going on," Juliana said in a voice. "He has been scared just like you have been scared. Being scared can keep people from being with each other when they should really be together." Celeste slowly stopped rocking forth. It took a lot of effort for her to do this. Her humming got really quiet. She looked at her father with her looking eyes. Theodore saw his late wife looking back at him through Celeste's eyes. It was not like she was blaming him for something. It was like Celeste's eyes were asking him to do something. The king got down on his knees in the dirt next to his daughter. He did not care that his fancy robes were getting dirty. "This is really beautiful," the king said in a voice. "All of this is great. Did you make it all by yourself?" his daughter? The king looked at all the things his daughter had made. He thought it was amazing. The king asked his daughter again, "Did you really make all of this by yourself?" Celeste nodded once. She opened her journal to the page with hands that were shaking. The flowers that were pressed in the journal were from Queen Anastasia's garden. Each flower had symbols written next to it that Theodore recognized now. He remembered that his wife used to keep journals like this. She would write about the plants she was studying and draw pictures to help her remember things. Their daughter was a lot like her mother. She looked like her. She did things the same way. She had the gifts as her mother, and she saw the world in the same way as Queen Anastasia and her mother. The journal was full of Queen Anastasia's flowers, and Theodore's daughter had written symbols next to each one like her mother used to do. Theodore whispered to me, "She taught you this." He touched the dried petals with a lot of respect. "Before she died, she somehow taught you this." Theodore said that before she died she taught you. Celeste turned the pages. Showed him all the work she had done over the years. There were gardens that she had designed but never actually planted. She had written down things she noticed about how the seasons changed and how plants behaved. She had also studied the way things can be symmetrical and the patterns that things grow in, like spirals. All throughout the pages there were pictures of her mother dancing. Her mother was always dancing in these pictures. She looked really happy. You could see the joy in the way the flowers were arranged. The pictures of her mother dancing were mixed in with all the things Celeste had written and drawn about gardens and plants and symmetry and growth patterns. When Celeste and her father got to the pages, Celeste showed her father the memorial garden design. This design really got to her father. The garden had lots of plants that meant something. There were roses because they mean love. There were forget-me-nots because they mean we should remember things. There were white lilies because they mean peace. In the middle of the garden there was a figure made out of living vines that were wrapped around a wire frame. The figure had its arms out. It looked like it was dancing. The vines were trained to grow over the wire frame. The figure looked really graceful. Celeste and her father liked the garden design because it was beautiful and it meant something. The memorial garden had all these plants, like roses and forget-me-nots and white lilies, that made it special. Theodore said, "This is for her." "This is for your mother." Celeste nodded. She moved her finger to point at something in the design. It was another figure than the first one. This figure had its hands open. Was reaching out to the dancer. Celeste looked at her father. Her eyes were asking him a question that she did not say loud. Theodore thought about it. He realized that we want to build this thing together. We, you and Theodore, are going to create something in her memory. This is something Theodore really wants to do with you, to make something that will always remind us of her. The princess' face changed with a lot of hope. It was really sad to see her like that. She nodded hard, holding her journal very tightly. The princess was holding on to her journal with all her might. Theodore pulled his daughter into his arms for the time in years. At first she was really stiff. This was because she was overwhelmed by the contact. Theodore held her in a gentle way. He gave her the space to get used to it. Slowly her body started to relax. Theodore's daughter put her arms around his neck. Then she put her face on his shoulder. She made noises that showed she was relieved and that she really loved him. Theodore's daughter had not been able to show him love for a time. The king said this to her in a quiet voice, his words going into her hair that shone like the stars. He felt really bad because he had been thinking about things for so long that he did not even notice she was standing right in front of him. The king thought that her mother would not be happy with him because he had not taken care of the king's daughter, the king's own child. Celeste pulled back. Shook her head. She put her fingers on her father's face softly, and then she put her hand on his heart. It was easy to understand what Celeste meant. Anastasia was a part of both of them. Celeste thought that being sad all the time did not do Anastasia justice. Celeste felt that Anastasia lived in her heart and, in her father's heart, and being sad did not honor Anastasia. From the gathered nobles, Lord Blackwood cleared his throat. "Your Majesty, this is a moment, but the nobles and Lord Blackwood still have to talk about the gardener. The gardener did something and Lord Blackwood thinks they should discuss this problem with the gardener. Your Majesty, Lord Blackwood wants to make sure the gardener is punished for what he did. The gardener's behavior was not good. Lord Blackwood is concerned about the gardener's actions." Theodore got up slowly. Helped Celeste up. Then he turned to face the people who advise him. "The person who takes care of the garden was nicer to my daughter in 2 weeks than all of you have been in 19 years. Celeste will be in charge of the royal gardens now. This change starts away. She will get paid more because of her job as head of royal gardens." "Your Majesty," Blackwood said, stumbling over his words. The king went on, his voice getting really tough. "If anyone says something about my daughter or thinks she is not good enough, they will have to leave the court for good. My daughter is really smart, she can do a lot of things. She is the only one who will get my throne." The king said, "You have to treat my daughter with respect because that is what she deserves. The king wants everyone to know that my daughter is very important." The nobles looked at each other. They nodded that they agreed. Nobody was brave enough to argue with the king now that he was standing up for himself again. The vampire king had found his confidence and the nobles knew better than to cross him. Theodore looked at Juliana with a lot of gratitude and a lot of respect. He said thank you to Juliana. Juliana gave Theodore something that Theodore thought was lost forever. Theodore really appreciated what Juliana did for Theodore. Theodore felt happy that Juliana helped Theodore get something that Theodore thought Theodore would never have again. Juliana curtsied deeply. "Princess Celeste did that herself, Your Majesty. She just needed someone to see Princess Celeste trying." The next week was when people started getting ready for the Harvest Moon Ball. This is usually the best event of the year. In the past, Celeste was not allowed to go to the Harvest Moon Ball. She was considered wild for parties like that. This year was different. The Harvest Moon Ball was going to be special. Celeste was going to be a part of it. The night of the ball was really something. The big room was full of candlelight and autumn flowers. People who were important came to the ball. They were all dressed up in their best clothes. They were all wearing jewelry that sparkled and they were talking to each other. The musicians were getting their instruments ready to play music. At the time, the servants were walking around with glasses of wine that were as dark as garnets. The ball was a sight, with the grand ballroom and the autumn flowers and the nobles all dressed up. The musicians started to play. The nobles began to dance and have a good time. The night of the ball was a night to remember, with the ballroom and the music and the people all having fun together. When King Theodore walked in with Princess Celeste by his side, everyone in the room stopped talking. Princess Celeste had on a green dress that her mother used to wear, and it had been changed to fit her small body. Her hair was done up with flowers and little shiny things that sparkled like stars in the light. She walked slowly and carefully, her hand on King Theodore's arm, her purple eyes looking at everything closely.